Hey everyone, it's Drew Murray from D20 Advice, and we're now on day 11 of my 30-day world. Flopped up there. No one noticed. Let's move on. So, Absolute Tabletop, those guys, they have been producing amazing content for Dungeons and Dragons. They are doing the Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin Kickstarter, and they started this project, My 30-Day World, which I've really enjoyed. I've loved it. I've also noticed that a couple of people that I know are doing My 30-Day World things. A couple of them have started leaving comments and things on my video, and I'm starting to feel really bad that I'm deliberately abstaining from watching their videos. I watched the first couple, and I think I commented on a couple of them as well. But I've now stopped watching their videos so that there's no harsh crossover or anything, so that there's no cross pollination of ideas. But now I'm starting to feel really bad. So I think I'm going to go back and watch everyone's videos and just sort of keep up with it as it goes along and just try my best to keep my notes on my campaign world as separate as possible. I do occasionally try to like overshoot being careful. I think that's the case here. I'm being too careful. But anyway, day 11 is who opposes evil and injustice in your world? It depends on where it is. Just like everything else. So my campaign world is not a section. Like Forgotten Realms, Forgotten Realms is the whole world. But a lot of people tend to focus on the Sword Coast and Schult and those kind of areas. They don't care about the spine of the world, which is a concept that I completely ripped off. I remember playing Icewind Dale, not realizing it was part of an established campaign thing, and there being the spine of the world. And so I took that and I called it the Dragon's Spine instead. And it is a mountain range delineating the north and south regions. So you've got the southern regions, which I haven't named the southern region at all. It's just the individual continents there, but the entire north is called Ferrigion. It is the place beyond Ferrigion. I do like sound alikes and things. Homonyms? Is that the word? Anyway, who opposes evil and injustice in the world? Simon Basal is the quickest answer to that. He is a former Taihun, which is one of the gods. He is a former god in this world trying to oppose evil and injustice. But you also have, on a smaller scale, other groups. I suppose the Druids are trying to seek a balance, so they are the heroes of true neutrality. They don't care for the individual politics of people, they just care that life continues. And that's their main goal, furthering the cause of the Feyweave and making sure that life continues. And they don't care what form that life takes. Individual politics start to seep in when you get these clashes of ideology, when you start getting druids that are caught up in some situation where they need to decide which of two life forms survive in a situation, the whole sort of trolley problem thing. But that's part of the thing with the campaign setting. You got to deal with that sort of thing. The dwarves, I would argue, are among the best that are presented up front. The dwarves are entirely democratic. They have a king and a queen, so they have a ruling monarchy, but that monarchy deals with the administrative duties. They are like the Queen of England. They leave the governing to the governing body, and they just deal with administrative duties and being a figurehead. But the governing body is every other dwarf in that city. It's a pure democracy. Now, the dwarves don't go and get involved in a lot of things. So day-to-day running of the city is all that's needed. So the king just deals with it and everyone else just deals with their own businesses. The democracy isn't needed day in, day out. They're not dealing with fast changing policies and economies and things. This is a medieval economy with I would argue relatively low magic. People aren't just going around flinging spells all over the place, and if they are, they're just helping here and there. So there's not a lot of constant regulation going on. So the population isn't spending all its time being in charge. And they use their armies as peacekeeping forces. So they try to avoid big wars happening. And they will get out of the way if they understand that their presence there is just exacerbating the situation. Cousins to the dwarves, the gnomes, they are my favorite secret justice keepers. So the gnomes act as though they are just traveling merchants. They have the occasional nook or hollow, as they call it, where they hide away. There's one that one of my players in a play-by-post that I was running came up with this idea, and I've loved it, and I've taken it on board. So there is a place called Garrick's Hollow, which is a former elven settlement that is now run by the gnomes, and it is essentially like a home hub for them in the region. And the rest of them just go around in their traveling caravans and trade between places. They travel far and wide. They get around, but they do this to gather information and to build relations with people. They are the secret string pullers in a beneficent way. So Simon Basal, keeping his secrets, not telling everyone who he is, going out and physically doing good himself, but still trying to keep a cover going on, and encouraging other people to go out and actively do good in these big, amazing, showy, flashy ways, like be an adventurer, strike down this evil dragon, go and face that lich, go and do it. That's Simon Basal's way of doing things. The dwarves will be there right behind him with their armies going, yes, let's take care of this thing. Let's make sure it all works out. The gnomes will be just trading and having conversations with the people that they're trading with, and occasionally accidentally bumping into a guard and exchanging a few words, and just like, oh, wouldn't it be a shame if a mistake happened? And so that guard goes back to this couple like, yeah, actually, these people that are like just said, wouldn't it be a shame for a mistake happened? Just this offhand comment. I'll double the shifts tonight, and it stops something that the gnomes knew was going on. That's the kind of influence that the gnomes have. They very secretly help things along. They don't control everything, but I do love it when whenever there's the opportunity for all of their wagons to converge. You just need a minimum of 3 wagons. But when you've got hundreds or thousands of them converging and they all mesh together, they've got mechanisms inside these massive wagons that all like the tops flop open, and you've got gears that mesh together and grind, and then you've got these structures rising up as these gears are working together. And it's entirely modular, so with just like a couple of gear changes and a couple of switches flipped and things, they can build different structures, and they can work with different caravans being present and that kind of thing. An entirely modular and mechanistic thing where they can quickly build a home structure. They can quickly build a ballista. They can build like massive siege weaponry if they need to, but they very rarely go to war. They will only go to war in massive cosmic scale events. They are trying to keep the fact that their wagons can do this a secret as much as they can. So, the gnomes are great. They do that. In the north, no one really opposes injustice and evil. You've got the giants doing the level best, especially the stone giants, at just living their lives, but they won't go out of their way to protect others. And I think that's where the preventing injustice thing comes in for me, because then they're only looking out for themselves. They'll occasionally like step in to try and stop a greater evil. If it seems like, yes, it'll take out the orcs and then move on to us, we'll help the orcs in this instance, but it's very self-serving. In the north, because everything's so harsh and resources are so rare and everything, everyone's got this kind of stiff upper lip, head down, focus on your own problems sort of mentality up there. So there isn't really that sort of thing. Speaking of, You go to the very tippy top, to the North Pole. You then have the dragon, Gorbane, and he is sitting there on the precipice between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Yes, he is essentially a godfather type figure. Yes, he is a crime boss who messes with people just to see that he can. But he's also the eternal guardian against the lands of the dead. You have so many evil creatures and spirits and twisted forms bashing at these mountain gates to try and get through into the world of the living and ravage and force their way south and over the dragon's spine. I've just realized that's Game of Thrones. Bugger. That really bothers me now. Balls. Like this is something that I've had before the show Game of Thrones came out, but the books were out by then, and I haven't read them. But my uncle, he reads books like that. This is probably a concept that I've picked up just through conversations with him, and I've just kind of spliced it into my own game. That annoys me. Anyway, besides the point, at some point in the campaign, the undead ride south and through the snowy wastes and into the southern regions where it's nice and warm. That can happen if you go and take out Gorbane, who is this big crime boss person. So he's standing against evil, but he's not doing it because he wants to. He's just keeping it at bay. So yeah, I've kind of gone on into less and less pure, less and less clear divisions of injustice and evil protection stuff. So I think that's it. There isn't like a group of paladins. The church doesn't really do anything actively. The only church members that will be actively opposing evil are the clerics in adventuring parties. Those are the only ones, or those with the acolyte background. Just a brief aside about backgrounds and classes and stuff. If you are a rogue, don't pick the criminal background. That's just boring. You're doubling up on some skills and equipment and stuff. But not only that, the background is what you did before you were an adventurer. And yes, you can have multiple things that you did before you became an adventurer, but the background is to give you like the skills that shine the most, the part of your character's background that reflects more of who they are and their values and the skills they bring to the table. You could very well have been a hermit for much of your life and then decided, you know what, I'm going to break my hermitage and travel the landscape and see what skills I can learn to keep myself living in the landscape. Do you go hermit or outlander? Well, what do you think is going to matter more to you as a person? Did you spending all your time on your own matter most to you as a character, or did traveling the landscape after your hermitage matter more to you as a character? Yes, the special feature is going to be one of the mitigating factors in depending on which one you pick. But yeah, if you are a cleric, yes, you could pick the acolyte background, but does that mean that you are always an acolyte? One of my favorite characters was a criminal cleric. He was a cleric who decided to turn over a new leaf. He was a thief, and then he decided to join the clergy when theft went awry and he accidentally killed someone. So now he's trying to escape from that, and he's joined the church and he's doing good, but this past can catch up to him. That's a far more interesting character than someone who employs skills of thievery and has always done so. He was never an orphan. He was never alone on the street. He was never a noble that has turned to this life of crime in the present day. A rogue doesn't need to be an active criminal to have thievery skills either. So the whole criminal rogue thing, yes, it can happen. It can mesh, but don't make it always that way, okay? Make more interesting characters. One of my favorite things to do is to randomize entirely character creation and see what comes up and tweak the odd bits here and there that don't quite match what I'm going for. When I look at a race, class, background, and some of the personality types that randomly come up, I have a look at the overall thing, see what it makes me feel, and make the occasional tweak. Like maybe I'll change the race or something to better match a mental picture, or I'll maybe change the bond but keep the flaw or something. So yeah, well, one of my favorites was an orc paladin. I can't quite remember the background. I think it might have been folk hero or something. But this orc paladin wanted to rule the world as a despot. He thought that that would be the only way that the world would be good. And I was entirely randomizing it, and I thought it was fantastic. And then went to, I think it was Volo's guide, and picked one of the new archetypes for the paladin, where it was like a paladin of tyranny or something like that, or I can't remember. Conquest. I think that was it. A paladin of conquest. So yeah, interesting things can come out of that sort of thing. So yeah, people that oppose justice and injustice and evil. Talked about that. Talked about backgrounds and things in characters for some reason, which I can't quite remember. And yeah, that's everything. So thank you very much for watching. Go and do whatever you want to do. Click on another video. Go and watch that. Click on another video. Go and watch that.